Stop worrying. The enemy's hidden trap. There's something they don't tell you from the pulpit. Something many Christians ignore or choose to ignore. Worrying seems harmless, a human reaction, something natural. But what if I told you that constant worry is actually a hidden form of idolatry? Yes, you read that right. When you worry day and night about money, health, your children, or the future, you're not just doubting God's promises. You're handing over your mind to the rule of fear. And fear, though you may never say it out loud, becomes your true God. Do not worry about your life, said Jesus, Matthew 6 verse 25. But we do it anyway. And in the meantime, the enemy smiles in the shadows. Because every time you worry, he gains ground in your mind. No one tells you this, but Satan doesn't need to possess you, destroy your house, or harm your body. All he needs is to keep you restless, tense, anxious. Because a worried Christian doesn't pray as they should, doesn't believe as they should, doesn't live as they should. And the worst part? Many believe that worrying means being responsible, cautious, or realistic. But that's a lie dressed up as a virtue, an invisible strategy to slowly pull you away from living faith. A trap from hell that often goes unnoticed. Even in church, do you dare to see what lies behind your daily worries? Get ready, because what you'll discover on the next page won't just open your eyes, it might just save your soul.
Worry, a bridge to darkness. Did you know that constant worrying can be a silent form of spiritual rebellion? It doesn't sound that serious, does it? But if you dig into the root of worry, you will find something deeply unsettling. The hidden suspicion that God won't come true. That's what really lies behind thoughts like, what if I don't have enough? What if everything goes wrong? What if God don't hear me this time? Those questions, even if you never say them out loud, are valid accusations against God's character. It's like saying, God, I know you said you'd provide for me, but just in case, I torture myself with anxiety. And the enemy knows it. I don't need to rip the Bible from your hands. I just need to plant a tiny seed of doubt in your heart. From there, it turns you into his emotional puppet. And yes, many deny it. They sing in church, give offerings, serve in ministries. But life with clenched souls, as if the weight of the world were on their shoulders. Constant worry is not a sign of wisdom. It's a sign that your faith is bankrupt. And that's exactly what hell celebrates. An army of Christians who claim to trust God, but deep down life as if it don't exist. Now that you know, will you keep normalizing your anxiety? The cave where fight is. Worry isn't just a symptom. It's a hiding place. A cave. A false refuge. Many believers hide in worry just like Adam hid in Eden. They cover themselves with leaves of anxiety, thinking that's how they face life. But what they're really doing is running from the radical trust God calls for. Take a good look at this truth, even if it makes you uncomfortable. Constant worry is quiet distrust in God. It's saying, I pray, but I'm not sure God will answer. I read the Bible, but the problems are real. I have a fight, but I still lie awake at night wondering how I pay for everything. That's not fight. That's self-deception dressed up as spirituality. Genuine fight cannot coexist with chronic worry. They are mortal enemies. And if you let worry rule your days, you will end up feeding a monster that devours your peace, your joy, and your communion with God. And do you know what's the darkest part? Sometimes God allows luck in your life, just to see if you will trust Him or drown in anxiety. It's not punishment. It's a test. It's refining fire. And if instead of enduring it, you choose to worry, you lose more than your peace. You lose the chance to see God move like never before. The invisible idol you worship without knowing it. Many Christians break idols, reject idolatry, but worship every day as sadly, more accepted, more than heroes idol. The what if? What if he don't get the hoe? What if he gets sick? What if they leave me? What if he fall? That what if is a hidden altar that drains your fight day after day. And the worst part is, you have more time to those thoughts than to prayer. More mental energy to your fears than to God's promises. Do you see it? You're worshipping fear. You're revering the worst case scenario. As if it were more real than the God who parted the sea, raised the dead, and multiplied loaves. And while you're mentally building your own disaster, the enemy don't even need to attack you directly. You're destroying yourself. Because worry is the only sin modern Christians proudly defend. It's not that I worry, I'm just cautious. It's not a lack of fight, I'm just being realistic. But God didn't call us to be realistic. He called us to live by faith. And faith don't need evidence. It only needs radical obedience. If you keep bowing to your what ifs, you will never see what God can do with an even if. Though the fig tree does not bear, yet it will rejoice in the Lord. Habacuc 3, 17-18. Anxiety as a cursed inheritance. No one tells you this from the pulpit, but deep down, you know it. Many of your worries didn't start with you, they were inherited. From your mother. From your father. From a grandmother who never slept peacefully. From a home where fear was the culture, and fight was just Sunday decoration. You carried for years a backpack that was never yours. A fear-based mindset. A control-centered upbringing. And a spirituality poisoned with phrases like, God provides, but you have to be prepared in case it don't. Lies. That's not wisdom. That's unbelief disguised as caution. And worse, this way of thinking has corrupted entire generations in the church. A rotten spiritual inheritance that God wants to break. But you keep protecting it because that's how it was raised. How long will you let the fear of your ancestors rule your present? Anxiety isn't just an emotional issue. It's a spiritual tie. And like every spiritual tie, it must be broken in the name of Jesus. Because if you don't cut that root, you will keep planting crooked trees. Your children will see your tired eyes and think anxiety is part of growing up. Your family will learn that fight is just a speech, not a lifestyle. And in that moment, hell wins. Not just your mind, but your legacy. The invisible web the enemy wove in your mind. There is a web woven in silence. Invisible. Quiet. Lethal. And it's not a physical web, but a mental and spiritual one. It's made of repetitive thoughts, relentless doubts, and catastrophic images that sneak into your mind uninvited. The enemy don't always attack with screams. Sometimes he used whispers. And the whispers just enough for you to lock yourself inside a prison of anxiety. Want to know a secret? The devil don't need to steal your blessing. He just needs to convince you that you're not going to receive it. And that alone is enough to paralyze you. That's how he traps you in cycles. You pray, but you don't trust. You read the Bible, but don't fully believe it. You serve, but you don't rest. And because you're tired, anxious, and confused, You start to settle for a lukewarm Christianity. Driven by emotion, but empty of power. And what does God say about this? The one who doubts is like a wave of the sea. That person should not expect to receive anything from the Lord. James 1, 6-7. E doente say it to condemn you. E says it to shake you. To wake you up. To make you see that the web trapping you wasn't woven by God. You wove it yourself with every worry filled to you empowered. But every web can be broken. If you choose today to stop feeding that spider's web with your unbelief. Spiritual warfare, it is not anxiety, it is an attack. Did you think anxiety was just a psychological issue? An emotional imbalance or simply a tough season? No. What you're facing is a hidden spiritual war. Chronic worry is a fiery dart from the enemy. A sophisticated form of oppression. Not to knock you down instantly. But to wear you down slowly. It steals your focus. It grabs your peace. It drains your fight. And it does it elegantly. No screaming demons, no dramatic possessions. Used thoughts, whispers, and emotional exhaustion. But that don't make it any less dangerous. On the contrary. It's one of hell's most effective attacks. And do you know why? Because you're not fighting it the way you should. You fight with pills, soothing music, motivational quotes. When you should be on your knees, with tears and the living word on your lips. For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty in God for the pulling down of strongholds. 2 Corinthians 10:4. Where are your weapons, Christian? Or have you already surrendered and accepted living in constant turmoil as if it were normal? Wake up. This is not just a chemical imbalance. It's a spiritual invasion. And it can only be defeated with spiritual weapons. Anxiety is not reasoned with, it's rebuked. Stop worrying, it is a heavenly command. This is not a suggestion. Not an option. It's a direct order from heaven. Be anxious for nothing, Philippians 4:6. Do you see it? It don't say, try to worry less. Or, do your best to relax. It says, for nothing. Not for money. Not for your health. Not for your children. Not for what you don't understand. God don't negotiate with worry because he knows it's a slow-acting poison. He commands you to let go, because he already took control. And you, will you keep resisting that command? Will you keep carrying what you cannot change? Will you keep worshipping your what if, instead of resting in the I am? Worry don't make you responsible. It makes you a slave. And Christ didn't die to see you enslaved to your thoughts. He died so you could live free. Whole. Confident. With your head healthy, even if the world falls apart. So today, break the secret pact you made with anxiety. Surrender for real. Pray, not just to bend, but to release control. Stop playing God over your own future. And remember. There is no storm that can drown the one who walks on water with Jesus. There are only two options. Either you live trusting what you see. Or you walk on the invisible, with your eyes fixed on Him. You decide.
John, the beloved disciple of God. What did he know that the others didn't? The silence of the closest one. John. Not Simon Peter, not James, not Thomas. It was John, the beloved disciple, the only one who reclined on Jesus' chest during the Last Supper. Have you ever wondered why him? Why that privilege of proximity? What secret was whispered in that chest, to which no one else had access? When everyone fled, John stayed. When the world darkened at Golgotha, he was there at the foot of the cross. Jesus didn't give him a prophecy, nor a promise of power. He entrusted him with his mother. Who does that, if not someone with absolute trust? Mary, full of grace, was placed into his hands. And yet, there is little spoken about John. Very little. Why? Why is the most beloved, the most faithful, the only one who didn't betray or doubt, the most silenced from the pulpits? What revelation did John keep that wasn't meant to be shared? The apocalypse wasn't given by Jesus to Peter, nor to Paul. It was given to John, exiled on an island, writing visions that to this day generate fear, confusion, and theories. What did John see that he couldn't say out loud? What did he hear as he leaned his ear on the heart of the Son of God? Some say that John didn't die like the others, that he was taken up, that he saw the end before the beginning, and left warnings that were hidden or dismissed, not out of ignorance, but because they revealed something that the powerful didn't want you to know. John wasn't just a beloved disciple. He was a witness to heavenly secrets, and perhaps the last guardian of a message that has yet to be understood. The disciple who did not die. According to tradition, all the apostles died as martyrs except for John. Was the world not worthy of his blood? Or was there a deeper reason for his survival? Some ancient writings, discarded from official councils, suggest that John never died, that he was not executed, crucified, or beheaded. They say he was transformed, that his body saw no corruption, that he was taken like Elijah, like Enoch. Does that sound exaggerated? Fantastical? Remember, it was Jesus himself who said about John in front of Peter, "If I want him to remain until I come, what is that to you?" John 21 verse 22. A statement so strange that it sparked rumors even among the disciples. They believed that John would not die, and John never fully denied it. He only clarified that Jesus didn't say he wouldn't die, but, "If I want him to remain." Remain where? On earth? In a different spiritual state? As an observer of time and history? What if John is still among us? What if he is the silent guardian still waiting for the hour of his final revelation? Early Christian tradition is filled with mysterious accounts of this apostle. From visions in Ephesus to unexplained disappearances, John's life is a puzzle that doesn't fit with the others. He wasn't a martyr, but he was exiled. He wasn't killed, but he was silenced. Maybe John didn't die because he still had something to say. The gospel that defies time. While the other evangelists begin with genealogies, births, or preachings, John begins with the oldest mystery of all. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. John 1 verse 1. John does not recount a merely human Jesus. He writes about an eternal, cosmic Jesus beyond time. His gospel is not biography. It is revelation. He does not narrate. He interprets. Why? Because John saw what others did not see. While Matthew, Mark, and Luke present miracles, parables, and events, John takes us to the heart of the divine mystery, the incarnation of the Word. How could a fisherman write with such theological depth? Who taught him that? Or, what was revealed to him when he rested his head on the chest of the Son of God? Don't forget this. Only in his gospel does Lazarus appear, the man whom Jesus loved and raised from the dead. A story so powerful that it's not found in any other gospel. Why? Could it be that the story of Lazarus conceals a deeper truth about death and resurrection? A foretaste of John's own destiny? A mirror? Even stranger, John does not name himself in his gospel. He calls himself the beloved disciple. Never I, John, always from the shadows. Why would someone hide their name in the most intimate testimony of Christ? Modesty or caution? What John wrote was not just for his time. It was for the end. For when the ears of the world were ready to hear what he could never say out loud. The apocalypse they didn't want to reveal. Exiled on the island of Patmos, isolated from the world, John received a vision that shook the foundations of the early church. It wasn't a letter, it wasn't a parable. It was a celestial download, the apocalypse. But why John? Jesus entrusted the secrets of the end of the world, not to Peter, to whom he gave the keys, nor to Paul, the great preacher, but to John. Why? Because John would not fear telling the truth, even if it hurt. Because John did not belong to religious or political powers, but to the heart of God. And yet, for centuries, they tried to silence his vision. There were councils where they questioned whether to include Revelation in the Bible. Some wanted to remove it. Why such fear of these pages? Because in them, the corruption of religious systems is exposed. Because in them, there appears a prostituted church, rich in gold but empty of God. Because in them, the truth is revealed. Not everyone who says, "Lord, Lord," will enter the kingdom. John did not write a horror book. He wrote a warning for the blind who believe they can see. And there is something even more unsettling. At the end of his vision, he is forbidden from writing certain things. Seal up the things which the seven thunders uttered, and do not write them. Revelation 10 verse 4. What did John hear that we were not allowed to read? Why does that knowledge remain hidden to this day? Perhaps the most dangerous part of the apocalypse was never published. Perhaps it is still waiting for those who have ears to hear. John spoke of love with an almost strange insistence. God is love, he wrote. He didn't say, God has love or God loves. No, he said, God is love. 1 John 4 verse 8. But what kind of love is that which can open the seals of judgment? What type of love carries the cross and unmasks false shepherds? John was not speaking of a weak or emotional love. He was talking about a divine energy, something that could not be manipulated or faked. A love so pure that, upon touching it, it would either transform or destroy. And that love, according to him, was the only key to discerning between the children of God and the children of the devil. So clear. Anyone who does not love does not know God. 1 John 4 verse 8. Powerful. He doesn't say the one who doesn't pray or the one who doesn't go to church. He says, the one who does not love. John gently denounced what others shouted in condemnation, and that made him more dangerous, because his message could not be domesticated. He didn't sell fear, but truth. He didn't offer power, but surrender. That's why many religious people didn't know what to do with him. Love as a sword? Love as judgment? Maybe John discovered that love, in its purest form, destroys all spiritual hypocrisy. And that is not preached from just any pulpit. The last witness of the mystery. Many forget that John was a witness from the beginning to the end. Not only did he see miracles, he saw the transfiguration, heard the voice from heaven, and was the only apostle present at the exact moment when Jesus died. And that detail is no small matter. It was John who heard Jesus' last words. Not just, I thirst, or Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. But that unsettling phrase directly addressed to him, Woman, here is your son. Son, here is your mother. John 19 verses 26 to 27. Jesus wasn't just speaking of care. He was talking about a spiritual transfer, a symbolic act of authority and legacy. John wasn't just receiving Mary, He was receiving the hidden knowledge that she had also kept in her heart since Bethlehem. John was the only apostle who lived alongside the mother of the Messiah, the only one who could hear directly the stories that even Luke couldn't fully detail. What secrets did Mary confide in him? Did she speak of the angels, of Joseph's dreams, of the lost child in the temple speaking with the wise men? And why, after all that, did John write only 3 brief letters and an evangelistic gospel full of symbolism? Why didn't he recount more details? Why, with so much power in his hands, did he choose silence? Did he perhaps understand that certain truths couldn't be spoken openly? That they would only be revealed in the time of the end, when the world was ready to listen without going mad? John was the last witness, the one who remained when all the others had gone. And the last witnesses always know more than they say. The guardian of the final time. Many believe that Revelation is just a book of symbols. Dragons, beasts, trumpets, bowls. But what if I told you that it was all real, just on another level of reality? John didn't just have visions. He was taken to another dimension. The text states it plainly. I was in the Spirit on the Lord's day. Revelation 1 verse 10. That's not a metaphor. That's a shift of planes. A transfer. An experience outside of time. And from there, he saw the world's outcome. Not as a prophecy to scare, but as a warning to prepare. But the most chilling part is this. John saw a beast that looked like the Lamb, but spoke like a dragon. A religious figure seemingly good, but diabolical inside. It had 2 horns like a lamb, but spoke like a dragon. Revelation 13 verse 11. Do you see it? A false church, dressed in holiness, perverting the name of God and seducing the entire world. Could this be the most dangerous warning of all? That in the end times, the true threat will not come from the outside, but from within the sacred. John didn't state it clearly because he couldn't, but he left it written, between the lines, in visions, for those who know how to read. Perhaps the greatest enemy of faith is not atheism, but the lie disguised as devotion, and John, the beloved, knew it, the return of the silent one. Everything seems to end with John slowly disappearing from the scene. There are no accounts of his death. There is no certain tomb, only rumors, only whispers. The early Christians said, John did not die, John was taken. And some, now forgotten by official history, spoke of a John who would return when the truth was about to be buried forever. What if he is hidden among us, even today? What if his mission is not over? Remember, Revelation ends with an urgent call. The Spirit and the bride say, Come. Revelation 22 verse 17. But just before, a chilling warning. If anyone adds to these things, God will add to him the plagues written in this book. And if anyone takes away from the words of the book of this prophecy, God will take away his part from the book of life. Revelation 22 verses 18 to 19. John did not only see the end, he was commissioned to protect it. And if his life did not end with a tomb, then his work still breathes. John is the guardian of the mystery, the living witness of the word, the only one who can say, And we saw his glory, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. John 1 verse 14. He was not the strongest. He was not the most famous, but he was the most loved. And true love does not die. Three pure hearts in the village of Fatima. It was the year 1917, and the whole world was trembling under the weight of World War I. However, in a small village in Portugal called Fatima, life continued with the calmness of the green fields and the prayers whispered at dusk. There lived 3 humble shepherd children, Lucia, 10 years old, and her cousins Jacinta, 7, and Francisco, 9. Each day, the 3 children took a few sheep to graze in the valleys of Cova de Iria, an open field full of peace and wildflowers. Though they were small, their faith was great. They prayed the rosary every day, as their parents had taught them, and although they didn't fully understand the suffering of the world, they prayed for peace and for the souls of sinners. One day, while the sun was shining brightly above their heads, a lightning bolt crossed the sky with no cloud in sight. Frightened, they began to run to return home when suddenly, a light brighter than the sun stopped them in their tracks. There, on a small oak tree, appeared a lady dressed in white, more radiant than the sky itself. Their faces filled with wonder, and although fear gripped their chests, the sweetness of the vision filled them with an inexplicable peace. The lady spoke to them with a soft, maternal voice. "Do not be afraid. I will not harm you. I am from heaven." The children looked at each other, unsure of what to say. Lucia, the eldest, was the first to gather the courage to ask, "What do you want from us?" The lady responded with a simple but powerful request. "I come to ask that you come here for 6 consecutive months, on the 13th at this same hour. Then I will tell you who I am and what I want." Thus began the mystery, the faith, and the mission of 3 little hearts who would witness something that would change the spiritual course of the world. The heavenly message and the test of faith. As the lady's words echoed in their hearts, the children stood in awe, trying to comprehend the magnitude of what had just happened. They had seen with their own eyes the Virgin Mary, and she had spoken to them, simple shepherd children with no riches or fame to their names. But it was not the power or grandeur of the moment that stayed with them. It was the gentleness of her presence, the way she made them feel as if they were the only ones in the world. Lucia, the oldest, was entrusted with the task of sharing the message, though she hesitated. How could anyone believe such a story? Who would take seriously the words of 3 children from a small village? But when the time came to return home, they each promised to keep their vision a secret, unsure of what the consequences might be. The next day, the village buzzed with rumors. Some believed the children had been tricked by a trickster spirit. Others feared that they had been deceived by their own imaginations. Still, a deep sense of unease lingered, and the children found themselves wondering whether they had done the right thing by telling the adults. On the 13th of the following month, the children once again found themselves standing at the base of the oak tree, just as the lady had asked. The weather was calm, and the sun shone brightly in the clear blue sky, but this time, they were not alone. Crowds of curious villagers, skeptical of the children's story, gathered around to see for themselves. At first, nothing happened, and the children began to feel embarrassed and disheartened. But then, as if on cue, a brilliant light filled the sky. The same lady appeared before them, this time more radiant than ever. "I have come to remind you," the lady said, "that the world is in need of change. People have forgotten how to love and care for each other. The Holy Father in Rome will suffer greatly, and there will be wars and turmoil. But if the people return to God, if they pray, if they do penance, peace will come." The Virgin Mary's message was clear. The world needed to repent, to pray, and to turn back to God. But despite the message of peace, the children faced increasing mockery and even opposition from the local authorities. Many accused them of being liars or attention seekers, and some even threatened them with punishment. But the children held firm to their belief, trusting in the lady's words and the deep sense of peace that they had experienced in her presence. They returned to the field month after month, with unshaken faith, knowing that their mission was far greater than any earthly opposition they faced. As the days passed and the children continued to witness the lady's appearances, the tension in the village grew. Skepticism turned into fear for some, and faith into doubt for others. The children were under immense pressure, but they stood resolute, each child feeling the weight of the message they were entrusted with, knowing the world would not change unless people chose to listen and believe. On the 13th of October, something extraordinary happened that would change everything. Crowds gathered once again, more numerous than ever, skeptical but curious to see if the children's claims were true. It was a day that would be forever etched in history as a sign of divine intervention. As the children, along with the massive crowd, knelt and prayed, the sky above them began to shift. What appeared to be a mere trick of the light soon became something beyond human comprehension. A great light began to shine from the sun, casting a brilliant glow that momentarily blinded the onlookers. Gasps of amazement and fear swept through the crowd as they saw what appeared to be the sun itself spinning wildly in the sky, zigzagging, then descending toward the earth in an intense, fiery display. The people screamed and fell to their knees, believing the end of the world had come. But despite the fiery spectacle, the children remained calm. Lucia, Francisco, and Jacinta stood firm, their eyes fixed on the sky, their hearts filled with peace. They had been prepared for this moment. They knew it was the miracle the lady had promised, a sign for all to witness that what they had said was true. In the midst of this overwhelming sight, the sun suddenly stopped, returned to its original place, and everything calmed down. The people, who had once been so sure of their doubts, were now left in stunned silence. They looked around to find themselves untouched, their clothes dry and their hearts stirred with awe. The crowd erupted in praise, many of them converted by what they had just witnessed. People who had come to mock, to challenge, or simply to observe, now found their faith renewed. The miracle of the sun had proven the truth of the children's message, but it also revealed something deeper, the power of faith and the importance of trusting in God's timing and plan. This was not just a miracle of the sun, but a testament to the love and grace of the lady who had appeared to them, who had asked for their prayers and penance. The message of peace, the call to repentance, was clearer now more than ever. Yet, as they left the site of the miracle, the children knew that their mission had only just begun. They had to continue to live out the message of the lady in their daily lives, no matter the challenges or doubts that would come. The aftermath, conversion, and transformation. In the days following the miraculous event of October 13, 1917, the village of Fatima was forever changed. The once skeptical crowd, having witnessed the astonishing miracle of the sun, found themselves profoundly altered. The miracle had been a powerful confirmation of the children's message, but it was also the beginning of a deep spiritual transformation in the hearts of many. People who had once mocked the children now sought them out, eager to understand the message of faith and repentance they had carried so bravely. Pilgrims from all over the country began to arrive in Fatima, hoping to experience a touch of the divine and perhaps receive their own spiritual healing. It was clear that the miraculous event had ignited something far greater than just belief in a heavenly vision. It had stirred a deep sense of renewal, conversion, and change. The children, however, remained humble in the face of their newfound fame. They did not seek recognition or adulation. Rather, they continued to carry out the mission that had been entrusted to them. Their message was simple. The world needed prayer, penance, and conversion. The lady's call for devotion to the Immaculate Heart of Mary resonated in their hearts, and they spoke of it with the same earnestness and conviction they had since the very beginning of the apparitions. Despite the overwhelming attention, the children were still just children, innocent, pure, and determined to live their faith. Lucia, in particular, was called to share the full details of the lady's messages with the world, even as she grew older and her path led her toward a life in religious service. It was Lucia's writings, later in her life, that would help to preserve the full story of Fatima, ensuring that the powerful lessons of the apparitions would continue to be passed down through generations. As the world responded to the events at Fatima, some skeptics remained. They sought rational explanations, attempting to dismiss the miraculous event as an optical illusion or a natural phenomenon. Yet, the testimonies of thousands of people, all who had witnessed the miracle with their own eyes, stood as irrefutable evidence that something extraordinary had taken place. The influence of Fatima spread far beyond the small village in Portugal. Pilgrims from across the globe journeyed to the site, each seeking a deeper connection with God and hoping to find peace amidst the turmoil of a world still scarred by war and uncertainty. The message of Fatima, the message of prayer, sacrifice, and devotion, was not just for the people of Portugal, but for the entire world, and it resonated with those searching for hope in the midst of their trials. As the years passed, Fatima became a symbol of divine intervention and a beacon of faith. The world had witnessed a miracle, and it was impossible to ignore the call to transformation it carried with it. But while the crowds may have dwindled over time, the message of the lady, her plea for peace and repentance, remained ever relevant. One of the most significant aspects of the Fatima apparitions was the 3 secrets that the Virgin Mary entrusted to the children. These secrets, shrouded in mystery for many years, were not fully revealed to the public until decades later, and they continue to spark debate and reflection even today. The first secret was a vision of hell, a terrifying glimpse of the fate awaiting souls who did not repent. Lucia described this vision as one that would remain imprinted on her mind for the rest of her life. The vision was meant to awaken the world to the urgency of prayer, penance, and conversion. It was a stark reminder of the consequences of sin and a call to action for all who were willing to heed it. The second secret was a prophecy concerning the end of World War I and the potential for another, even more devastating conflict, unless people heeded the call to prayer and conversion. It was a warning of the chaos that could unfold if humanity did not turn away from sin. Many scholars believe this prophecy was a direct reference to the rise of totalitarian regimes, the outbreak of World War II, and the ongoing struggles that would shape the 20th century. It is said that the Virgin Mary asked for the consecration of Russia to her Immaculate Heart, as a means of preventing further suffering and conflict. The third secret, however, would remain the most controversial and enigmatic. In 1944, Lucia wrote down the third secret in a letter addressed to the Pope. It was sealed in an envelope and kept in the Vatican, where it remained unopened until the year 2000. When it was finally revealed, the contents were shocking. A vision of a pope being killed by soldiers in a city in ruins, followed by the death of many others. It was widely interpreted as a prophecy concerning the attempted assassination of Pope John Paul II in 1981. A moment that shocked the world and seemed to eerily fulfill the vision described by Lucia. While the third secret's revelation answered many questions, it also raised many others. Some believed that the full content of the secret had not been fully revealed and that a deeper meaning lay hidden within it. The Pope himself, after surviving the assassination attempt, acknowledged the profound connection between his near-death experience and the message of Fatima. His subsequent devotion to the Immaculate Heart of Mary and his call for peace in the world became an integral part of his papacy, shaping the course of his leadership. The secrets of Fatima have left an indelible mark on the Catholic Church and the world at large. They continue to inspire prayer, reflection, and even controversy. Some view the secrets as a warning that should be taken seriously, while others regard them as allegorical representations of the trials and sufferings that humanity must endure in its pursuit of peace. Yet, At the heart of the Fatima message remains the call to repentance, prayer, and faith. No matter how one interprets the secrets, the central message is clear. Humanity must turn to God with a sincere heart, seeking forgiveness and striving for peace, or face the consequences of continuing down a path of sin and division. The apparitions of Our Lady of Fatima did not only focus on prophecies or warnings, they emphasized a deeply personal and communal call to action. It was a call for individuals, families, and nations to take responsibility for their own spiritual well-being, recognizing that peace in the world starts with peace in the hearts of its people. In the years following the apparitions, the message of Fatima spread far and wide, attracting millions of pilgrims to the small Portuguese village. The statue of Our Lady of Fatima became an icon of hope, compassion, and divine intervention, and many have reported miraculous healings and spiritual conversions through its intercession. One of the most important aspects of the Fatima message is the call for the consecration of the world to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. This consecration, which was made by Pope John Paul II in 1984, was seen as a response to the Virgin Mary's request. The act symbolized the Church's recognition of Mary's maternal care and protection over the world. It was a gesture of trust in her intercession and an acknowledgement that, through her, humanity can draw closer to Christ. For many, Fatima represents the role of Mary as the spiritual mother of all believers, guiding them toward her Son with love and compassion. The message of Fatima calls individuals to a deeper relationship with Christ, urging them to live lives of prayer, penance, and conversion. In a world marked by violence, war, and division, Fatima stands as a beacon of hope, urging humanity to turn back to God and seek His mercy. Moreover, the apparitions are also a powerful reminder of the importance of faith and the perseverance needed in the face of trials and suffering. The children of Fatima, particularly Lucia, exhibited great courage and unwavering trust in God's plan, even when faced with great challenges. Their willingness to suffer for the sake of their faith is a powerful witness to the depth of their belief and the strength of their conviction. Their example continues to inspire Christians around the world to remain faithful, even when faced with adversity. In addition to personal conversion, the message of Fatima calls for social transformation. The Virgin Mary's plea for peace and her warnings of future wars and suffering invite believers to take an active role in promoting justice, peace, and reconciliation. The call to prayer and penance is not only a spiritual act but also a call to work for the good of others, particularly those suffering from war, poverty, and oppression. Today, the legacy of Fatima continues to resonate with believers of all ages and backgrounds. Pilgrimages to the sanctuary of Fatima remain a source of inspiration, and the message of Fatima continues to be a guiding light for those seeking to live lives of faith, hope, and love. The call for peace, conversion, and prayer remains as relevant today as it was over a century ago. As we draw closer to the conclusion of the Fatima narrative, it's essential to understand how the powerful message of the Virgin Mary transcends time, offering both personal and collective hope. The impact of Fatima is not limited to the past but continues to inspire and transform lives to this very day. One of the key elements of Fatima's message is its emphasis on hope in the midst of suffering. The world, with its cycles of conflict, natural disasters, and societal challenges, can often feel overwhelming. However, Fatima offers a message of encouragement, a reminder that in the darkest moments, there is a path toward light. The prayers of the faithful, the daily practice of penance, and the devotion to Mary's Immaculate Heart are shown to have the power to heal not only individual hearts but entire nations. The prophetic nature of the apparitions remains relevant. As Mary foretold, there would be trials for humanity, particularly through the rise of violence and war. While the world has seen wars end and new challenges emerge, Fatima's call to prayer remains unyielding. In the modern world, Many people are looking for solutions to issues like conflict, poverty, climate change, and the fragmentation of communities. The message of Fatima calls for a return to spiritual and moral values as the foundation for real change. Our Lady's words at Fatima also encourage the faithful to adopt a mindset of perseverance, much like the shepherd children who stood firm in their belief despite persecution and doubt. This invitation is profound. In our own lives, how often do we abandon our trust when things become difficult? The Virgin Mary reminds us that enduring faith and steadfast prayer lead to the peace that Christ offers, peace that surpasses all understanding. The apparitions also serve as a vivid reminder that God is always present in the world, even when it may seem otherwise. Though the world can be chaotic, Fatima assures believers that divine intervention is real, that God has a plan for humanity, and that His love is constantly guiding us towards salvation. The apparitions, full of tenderness and maternal care, assure the faithful that they are never alone in their struggles, for God's presence is always with them through Mary's intercession. Another vital aspect of the message is the importance of devotion to the Rosary. The Rosary, as Mary requested, is a powerful tool for prayer and reflection. In the busy, often distracted world we live in, the Rosary allows us to connect with the sacred mysteries of Christ's life, death, and resurrection. By meditating on these events, we deepen our relationship with Jesus and grow in spiritual maturity. The Rosary, as a tool of prayer and contemplation, continues to be a source of strength for millions of people around the world. At Fatima, we are reminded of the importance of living our faith in the public sphere. It's not enough to pray in private. The world needs the light of Christ. Fatima, with its call to pray for peace and conversion, encourages Christians to take the gospel into their communities, to be witnesses of God's love and compassion in the world. As the children of Fatima were asked to make sacrifices for the conversion of sinners, so too are we called to take up the mantle of intercession, standing in the gap for those who may be lost or suffering. The Fatima message, now over a century old, remains as vital and transformative as ever. The stories of the visionaries, their faith, courage, and commitment to prayer, continue to serve as examples for modern believers. Fatima is a testament to the power of prayer, the call to conversion, and the role of Mary as the loving, maternal intercessor for all who seek to know Christ. As we arrive at the final page of our exploration of the Fatima message, we are left with a profound sense of awe at the power of the Virgin Mary's appearances to three humble shepherd children. The apparitions at Fatima are not merely a historical event. They are a living, breathing part of the spiritual journey of countless believers worldwide. The words spoken by Our Lady continue to inspire hope, faith, and a deep sense of divine protection in the hearts of millions. The legacy of Fatima is woven into the fabric of the Catholic faith, and its lessons are as relevant today as they were over a century ago. The constant call to prayer, penance, and the importance of the Rosary resonate with anyone seeking solace in times of hardship. In a world often marred by division, pain, and uncertainty, the message of Fatima offers a beacon of light, a reminder that through the intercession of Our Lady, the path to peace, healing, and unity is always within reach. But beyond the messages of hope, penance, and peace, Fatima also invites us to reflect on our role in the world. It calls each one of us to examine how we live our faith, how we can contribute to the transformation of our communities, and how we can extend love and mercy to those in need. The visionaries of Fatima were not extraordinary in their own right. They were ordinary children who, through their obedience and trust in God, were chosen to carry an extraordinary message. This shows us that God works through ordinary people to bring about His plan of salvation. The message of Fatima encourages us to examine the state of our world today. While we live in an age of technological advancement and widespread global interconnectedness, many of the challenges Mary foresaw wars, violence, and societal turmoil persist. Fatima calls us to renew our commitment to peace and reconciliation. It challenges us to be agents of change, inspired by the love and guidance of Mary, to transform not only our personal lives but also the communities and nations around us. In embracing the message of Fatima, we are also reminded of the incredible power of the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Through her loving, maternal intercession, we are invited to walk the path of holiness, knowing that she will lead us closer to her Son, Jesus. Just as the children of Fatima were entrusted with a message of profound importance, we too are entrusted with the responsibility to share that message with others. We are invited to be lights in a dark world, to offer our prayers and sacrifices for the conversion of sinners and for peace in the world. As we continue to witness the events unfolding in our own lives and in the world, the lessons of Fatima remain a constant source of guidance and hope. We are called to trust in God's divine plan, to persevere in prayer, and to act with compassion, love, and mercy. Just as the children of Fatima were instruments of God's will, so too are we called to be instruments of His peace. In conclusion, the legacy of Fatima is one of enduring hope, faith, and love. The message of Our Lady of Fatima continues to inspire and transform lives around the world, offering a powerful reminder that through prayer, penance, and devotion, we can contribute to the fulfillment of God's plan for peace and salvation. Fatima invites us to embrace our role as faithful witnesses of God's love and to live with the unwavering trust that through Our Lady's intercession, all things are possible. The saint who plowed faith with his hands. Some stories are born in palaces, and others spring from the earth, with hands full of mud but hearts full of God. Saint Isidore the farmer was not a king, nor a bishop, nor a scholar. He was a laborer, a simple man who barely knew how to read, but spoke with angels. His life was so humble that many overlooked him, until heaven chose to reveal him to the world through miracles that shook even the most skeptical. Who was this man who prayed while the oxen plowed on their own? How could a mere farmhand become one of the most venerated saints in the world? This is the story of Isidore of Merlo and Quintana, known as Saint Isidore the Farmer, a man who sowed faith, reaped miracles, and whose life will change yours forever. Stay with us until the end, because what you're about to hear is not just a story, it's a call to the soul. Smooth transition to the next scene. A sunrise over a wheat field. A child of the fields with his heart in heaven. Isidore was born around the year 1082, in Madrid back when it was still a small village in the Kingdom of Castile. Life was not easy from the start. His family was very poor, and like many at the time, they barely had enough to eat. But there was something about him, something different. Despite the hunger, the cold, and the long, harsh days in the fields, Isidore never complained. He always found time to speak with God. Sometimes, he would wander off alone behind the bushes, and with his tiny hands raised to the sky, he would say, "Lord, even if I have no bread, I have your love, and that is enough." The neighbors looked at him with pity. Some even mocked him. Poor little boy. He talks to the clouds as if God were going to answer him. But Isidore needed no proof. He had a pure faith, the kind of faith that doesn't need to see in order to believe. And in that faith, he found comfort and companionship. It is said that even from a young age, birds would perch beside him as he prayed, and a mysterious peace surrounded his presence, as if the earth itself recognized in him a chosen soul. Fade to black. Soft voice. While others dreamed of riches, Isidore dreamed of plowing for God, and soon heaven would give him far more than he ever imagined. the man who prayed while he plowed. Years passed, and that devout little boy became a hard-working man. Isidore earned his living as a farm laborer, working the fields of a noble landowner named Juan de Vargas. Though he was poor and had no privileges, his life followed an unbreakable order. God first, then work. Every morning before sunrise, while others still slept, Isidore was already on his knees praying in a small church. He never missed Mass and never began a day's work without entrusting it to the Lord. But this stirred criticism and envy among his fellow workers. "He's always late because he stays behind praying," they complained. "We do all the work while he's off with his head in the clouds." Intrigued, the landowner decided to spy on him one day, expecting to catch him being lazy. But what he saw left him breathless. While Isidore prayed, two mysterious figures, dressed in white with peaceful faces, were guiding the oxen and plowing the field for him. They were angels. Heaven itself was working beside him. Señor Juan fell to his knees, realizing that this man was no mere laborer. He was chosen. From that day on, no one ever doubted Isidore again. Because when you put God first, even the angels will take care of your work. The faith of a farmer had touched the heavens, and heaven had come down to earth to help him. Miracles in the land of the humble. The miracles in Isidore's life did not stop. Wherever he went, God's grace seemed to follow him like a faithful shadow. His companions began to share everything. Things that seemed impossible yet happened again and again. One winter day, while walking to the fields, he saw little birds trembling from cold and hunger. Without hesitation, he emptied his sack of wheat and scattered it on the ground to feed them. "God will give me more," he said with a smile. When he arrived at the mill to grind the rest of the grain, the others mocked him. "You'll have nothing left. You already gave everything to those animals." But when they opened the sack, it was full again, even more than before. It was as if heaven could not resist his generosity. On another occasion, he saw a beggar, frozen and thirsty. With no water to offer, Isidore struck a nearby rock with his staff, and a crystal-clear spring flowed forth. That well still exists today in Madrid and is called Saint Isidore's Well. Even when his son fell into a deep well, Isidore did not scream. He simply knelt to pray with his wife, and miraculously the waters rose to bring the boy safely to the surface. Each miracle was a whisper from God to the world. "Look at this humble servant. This is how you love. This is how you believe." Saint Isidore asked for no fame or rewards. He only wanted to serve and let God work through his simplicity. The love that was also holy. But Saint Isidore did not walk alone on the path of faith. By his side was Maria Toribia, known today as Saint Mary of the Head, a woman of equal humility and deep devotion. They married young and lived a life of simplicity, prayer, and work. Together, they shared not only scarce bread, but also the fire of a strong faith that sustained them in poverty and united them in love. They lived in a small house where everything was scarce, except prayer. Maria was a wise wife who never complained. When Isidore came home tired, she welcomed him with a smile and words of hope. "Do not fear, Isidore. If God gives us work, it is because he also gives us strength." When their only son fell into the well, it was Maria who first knelt to pray, while others shouted and despaired. And when people began to speak of her husband's miracles, she sought no glory. She simply gave thanks to God, silently. Their shared holiness was such that many said their home was not a house, but a chapel disguised as adobe. The love between Isidore and Maria was a reflection of what God dreams for every family. Humility, faith, and mutual surrender without measure. Two saints under one roof, serving one another, seeking nothing more than the will of God. the death of the just man and the glory of heaven. Years passed, and Isidore's body began to feel the weight of a life of hard labor. But his spirit remained young, ignited by prayer, service, and unwavering faith. One morning, as always, he went out to the fields. The wind caressed the wheat, and the birds seemed to sing louder than usual. Isidore knew his time on this earth was coming to an end. He was not afraid, only gratitude. Before dying, he asked to receive the sacraments, prayed for his wife and son, and thanked God for allowing him to live on earth, serving with his hands and believing with his heart. He died in peace in the year 1130, with the rosary in his hands and the name of Jesus on his lips. But his story did not end there. Years later, when they opened his tomb, they discovered that his body was incorrupt, untouched, as if heaven refused to let it decay. It was a clear sign of holiness. Miracles multiplied wherever he was invoked. The sick were healed, families restored, barren fields bore fruit again. Isidore, the humble farmer, was canonized by Pope Gregory XV in 1622. Alongside giants of faith like Saint Ignatius of Loyola and Saint Teresa of Jesus, the man of the earth became an eternal seed, sown in the world, gathered in heaven, the saint of workers and the miracles that never cease. Today, almost 1,000 years later, Saint Isidore the farmer continues to plow hearts with his example of humility, faith, and miracles. His figure has not been forgotten. On the contrary, he is one of the most venerated saints in the Hispanic world. He is the patron saint of Madrid, of farmers, of agricultural workers, and of all those who work the land with effort and hope. In many regions, processions are held to ask him for rain during times of drought and protection for the harvests. Thousands of people have reported favors received by invoking him with faith. In the poorest fields of Latin America, in forgotten villages of Spain, in lands where poverty still weighs heavily, the name of Saint Isidore remains alive, like a beacon for those who have no greater wealth than their faith. And what does his life teach us? That you don't need titles, power, or riches to reach the glory of God. It is enough to have a heart willing to pray, to love, and to trust, because when the heart kneels, the heavens rise. Saint Isidore reminds us that holiness is cultivated like wheat, day by day, with dirty hands, a clean soul, and eyes fixed on heaven, a humble heart that still speaks to the world. Today, as you listen to this story, Saint Isidore is not just a figure of the past, but an eternal testimony that God delights in the small, the hidden, the things the world despises. He was not a preacher, nor a martyr, nor a scholar. He was a farmer, a man of the furrow and the plow, but his faith moved heaven, and his simple life became an eternal miracle. Are you tired of being unseen? Do you feel your effort is worthless? Do you believe your prayers don't reach heaven because you lack power or wealth? Then remember Saint Isidore, the one who needed no pulpit to preach, no purple robes to be worthy, no gold to shine. He only had faith, and that faith changed the world. Today, I invite you to do what he did. Start your day with God. Do your work as if it were for him, and never stop praying, even if the world mocks you. Because when a heart surrenders with humility, God raises it with glory. Saint Isidore was not a saint for what he had, but for what he gave, his time, his prayer, his love. And you too can follow in his footsteps. Pray like Saint Isidore, live like him, and you will see how your land, dry and forgotten, will bloom in a miracle. Faith makes you mentally stronger, and no one wants you to know. There is a truth that has been ignored, minimized, or simply buried beneath layers of modern noise. Faith is not just spiritual comfort. It is a tool of mental power. And yes, someone doesn't want you to know this. Today, we live in an era where anxiety, depression, and fear are promoted as diseases with no spiritual solution. People drown in hopeless thoughts, and society responds with pills, labels, and distractions. But there is something that many silence. Authentic faith can lift a broken mind, strengthen it, and make it unshakable. But why isn't this openly taught? Why is faith ridiculed? Because a person with true faith cannot be easily manipulated. They don't need external approval. They don't give in to hopelessness. Faith, in essence, is a form of rebellion against the mental darkness they want to impose on us. We are not talking about blind or superstitious faith, but about a deep certainty that anchors the mind to purpose, to personal worth, to the power of God operating from within. Whoever has faith has peace, but they also have strength. And that strength is bothersome. It bothers the system. It bothers those who want to see you weak. It bothers those who profit from your fragility. A mind with faith is a mind that can't be easily controlled. Have you ever wondered why the most powerful systems in the world have always tried to ridicule or distort faith? It's no coincidence. A mind fueled by faith is dangerous to those who want to control, silence, or lead masses without resistance. Because a mind with faith does not bend to fear. It doesn't surrender to panic headlines. It doesn't submit to planned hopelessness. The one who has faith walks firmly in the midst of chaos, speaks with hope when everyone else is silent, smiles when the world tells them to give up, and that, at its core, is a mental power that cannot be manufactured in a laboratory or sold in a pill. It's a power that comes from the invisible, yet transforms the visible. Imagine someone told you that within you is a mental strength that doesn't need titles, wealth, or social approval, only faith. Would you accept it? Or would you think it's crazy? That's exactly what they've made us believe. That having faith is for the weak, when in reality, it's the strongest choice a mind can make. Faith trains you, it focuses you, it toughens you, prepares you to withstand storms that others can't even bear in thought. Because a mind with faith is not alone. And that is a secret the modern world does everything to hide from you. They've made you believe faith is an escape, but in reality it's strength. For decades, and perhaps centuries, an insidious idea has been planted that faith is a crutch, a fantasy for the weak, a refuge for those who can't bear reality. But what if it's the other way around? What if that narrative was implanted to keep you away from the deepest source of mental strength that exists? Think about it. A person with faith doesn't give up even when everything collapses. They don't bend, even when the world pushes them to despair. And that makes people uncomfortable. That breaks the mold. That scares those who need you to feel defeated. They want you to cling to empty logic, to soulless science, to the voices telling you, there's no hope, get used to it. But faith says, even when it's dark, there's a light that doesn't go out. Faith doesn't ignore pain, faces it. It walks through it. And while many break inside, the one with faith rises stronger after each blow. Why isn't that taught in schools? Why don't you see it in the media? Because it doesn't benefit them. If you discover that faith can renew your mind, heal your inner self, and give you indomitable strength, then they can no longer sell you fear. They can no longer control you with empty promises. They can no longer keep you bound to their system. A mind with faith is a free mind. And a free mind is the most dangerous thing that can exist. Science doesn't want to admit it, but faith transforms the mind. Here's where things get even more uncomfortable. Because even within the world of science, there are studies, research, and data proving that faith doesn't just affect the spirit, it also transforms the brain. But they don't tell you, or if they do, they bury it in some academic paper with no exposure. Why? Because if you knew that praying changes neural patterns, that spiritual meditation strengthens the prefrontal cortex, and that hope activates brain areas that generate mental resilience, then you would want more of that. And they don't want that, because a mind renewed by faith is not manipulable. A mind spiritually strengthened does not fall into collective panic. A mind with purpose and divine direction doesn't need addictions, approvals, or distractions to survive. Faith, although they deny it, is neurochemical, emotional, mental. It is complete. It's like an invisible armor that, the more you wear it, the more invulnerable you become to the chaos of the world. But if science openly recognized it, millions would stop depending on empty therapies, fleeting ideologies, and systems that promise everything but heal nothing. Faith breaks cycles. Faith heals memories. Faith rebuilds brains damaged by trauma. But they've labeled it as irrational. They've camouflaged it as superstition. They've silenced it because it empowers the individual from within without the need for human authority. And that cannot be allowed in a world that needs you to believe you are alone. The real battlefield is not the world, it's your mind. This is not conspiracy theory or magical thinking. It is a truth that the wise have known for centuries. Everything that happens to you on the outside is first fought on the inside. Anxiety starts as an idea, sadness as a belief, fear as a seed planted in your mind. And that mind, if not strengthened by faith, becomes fertile ground for despair. And guess what? They know this. They know that if they saturate you with bad news, with hopelessness, with images of failure and destruction, they break you from the inside without even touching you. The most lethal enemy is not the one who attacks with weapons. It's the one who makes you give up mentally. And that's where faith comes in. Because faith not only protects your soul, it shields your mind. It's not just an act of believing in God. It's a decision to not let fear have the final word. When you have faith, your thoughts are not slaves to fear. Your emotions are not hostages of your surroundings. Your will is not bent by circumstances. And that's why they want to eliminate it. Because a mind with faith doesn't need gurus, pills, or false promises of human salvation. A mind with faith connects to the supreme source and is set free. That's the silent war you fight every day. And many don't even realize they're losing it because they mocked the only weapon that could save them, faith. Why the powerful don't use faith, but fear those who have it. Stop and think about this. The world's leaders, the rich, the influential, many don't talk about faith. They don't promote it. They don't practice it publicly, but they do fear it when they see it in others. Why? Because they know that faith doesn't make a person passive. It makes them unstoppable. They know that a man or woman with faith can endure poverty, rejection, illness, and still stand firm. And that is a mystery that terrifies them. A human being who no longer fears losing everything because they trust in a higher purpose cannot be blackmailed. They can't be bribed. They can't be forced. They can't be programmed. Faith liberates. And inner freedom is a direct enemy of illegitimate power. That's why they find it more useful to have a confused, depressed, anesthetized population distracted by entertainment and consumption. People living with their minds filled with fear, without purpose, without spiritual identity. It's easier to control bodies when minds are empty of faith. And that's why you, reading this, have a brutal choice ahead of you. Keep accepting the narrative that faith is just a comfort, or realize that faith is the most lethal weapon against mental manipulation ever created. Are you ready to start using it? Faith doesn't just strengthen you, It awakens you from a manipulated reality. What if I told you that much of what you see, believe, and feel has been carefully designed to keep you asleep? I'm not talking about physical sleep, but spiritual, mental, emotional sleep. Look around you. Constant distractions, empty promises, false heroes, ideologies that change every year. And behind all of that, a system that feeds off the inner chaos of people. But faith, true faith, is like an alarm ringing inside of you. It says, wake up. All of this is smoke. Your power is elsewhere. And when you wake up, something changes. You no longer consume everything they sell you. You no longer believe everything they tell you. You no longer need to fit into a system that is rotten inside. Faith opens the eyes of the soul. And when you see with the eyes of the soul, the world can no longer deceive you. You begin to notice the invisible, the battles behind the faces, the sadness disguised as success, the emptiness behind entertainment, the lie operating disguised as progress. And then you become dangerous, because you no longer react, you discern. You no longer break, you rise. You are no longer controlled, you walk guided by something much higher. That's why they don't want you to have faith. Because when you have it, you're not just strong, you're free. And a free person cannot be manipulated. Faith is the last resistance in a world that wants to see you broken. In this modern world, where you're programmed to run, consume, compete, and never rest, faith is rebellion. Faith is revolution. Faith is resistance. Because while they shout at you, be strong, but without God. Be happy, but without hope. Be successful, but don't ask about your purpose. Faith whispers something that changes everything. You were not born to crawl. You were born to fly. And that idea, just that one, is capable of breaking all the invisible chains that bind you. Because you no longer seek value in titles, money, or social approval. You find it in your direct connection to the eternal. They can't allow that. That's why they attack faith. That's why they ridicule it. That's why they hide it behind dead dogmas or religions empty of life. But if you've made it this far, if something inside you burns as you read these words, then you already know faith is not a comfort. It's your hidden power. It's the key that the powerful fear you'll discover. You don't need the world's permission to wake up. God already gave it to you. So today, do what they never wanted you to do. Believe, rise, break the cycle, and fight, not with hatred, not with violence, but with a mind that does not give up, a soul that does not extinguish, and a faith that does not break. Because in a world that wants to see you broken, having faith is the most powerful act of resistance. Let God guide you, without forcing anything, when letting go of control is the scariest, yet the most divine. What if I told you that many Christians are praying wrong? Yes, you read that right. Some fast, cry out, beg, but they do it out of fear, from a desperate desire to control what is not theirs to control. Lord, do it now. Give me a sign. Show me this is the door. When in reality, what they're doing is trying to manipulate God. And do you know what's the darkest part of all this? That need to force things, to rush times, doesn't come from faith, but from the ego. We want God to guide us, but at the same time, we try to get ahead of His will, disguising our impatience with holy words. We don't trust, we demand. We don't wait, we pressure. And all while repeating phrases like, "Thy will be done," with our fingers crossed behind our backs. How far are we willing to surrender? To truly let Him guide us without our flesh wanting to speed up the process? Many say, I want to follow God, but only if it doesn't mean waiting, losing, being rejected, walking blindly. And here is the truth few dare to say. Sometimes, letting God guide you is like walking through a dark tunnel without knowing if there's an exit. There are moments when everything falls into silence. No signs, no doors opening, no dreams, no confirmations, no peace. Only an immense and deep spiritual silence. And the first thing we think is, God has abandoned me. But what if that silence wasn't a denial? What if it were a test of trust? The hidden truth, and no one tells you this, is that God's silence doesn't always mean no. Sometimes it means, be silent too, and follow me without understanding anything. This is the moment when many walk away, because they want a God who answers now, who acts now, who opens doors now. But the true God, the one who forges character, faith, and purpose, won't be manipulated by your timings or emotions. He guides you like a potter guides the clay. Slow, firm, without the clay understanding what it will become. And here's the painful truth to accept. You don't have control. You never did. Your anxiety to force outcomes is a subtle form of unbelief. Because if you truly believed, you'd wait in peace. But no, we fight, we scream, we tell God how and when, and then we wonder why everything falls apart. God doesn't need your help to be God. This may hurt, but you need to hear it. God doesn't need your intervention to fulfill His will. He doesn't need you to force doors open, manipulate situations to make everything fit, or convince anyone that you're part of His plan. Do you know what He does need? Your surrender, your obedience, your silence. The hidden truth, what's not preached from the pulpits, is that when you put your hands where only God should work, you spoil the miracle. Like Abraham and Sarah, who, tired of waiting for the promise, forced a human plan and birthed Ishmael. And how many Ishmaels have you created in your life because you couldn't wait? There are relationships you started because you felt peace. But in reality, it was your flesh disguising its anxiety. Doors you opened because everything seemed aligned. But you were the one who pushed every hinge until it broke. And now you bear the consequences of forcing what was never yours. Here's the truth that burns but sets you free. Everything that was forced to begin will need to be forced to be sustained. But what God guides, He sustains Himself. When your prayer becomes spiritual manipulation, this is strong. But it must be said, not everything you call prayer is faith. Sometimes we pray not to surrender, but to convince God to do what we want. And that's no longer prayer. It's manipulation disguised as spirituality. We say, Lord, if this isn't yours, take it away. But deep down we're pleading, Lord, let me keep it even if it's not yours. Do you see the contradiction? We ask for direction, but only accept answers that align with our desires. We tell God, guide me, while at the same time making our own plans, budgets, and agendas. And here's the danger that almost no one admits. We can build an idol out of our own dreams, and then ask God to bless it. And if He doesn't, we accuse Him. We doubt. We walk away. But God isn't a genie in a lamp, nor a celestial servant. He is Lord. And if He is Lord, then He decides the time, the path, and the how. And if you truly want to be guided by Him, you will have to learn to stop forcing your will, even if it feels like something inside you is dying. The idol of the perfect destiny you created yourself. Look closely. Many are not seeking God's will. They are seeking to fulfill the idealized image they've created in their minds. That perfect partner, that dream job, that life of blessing without processes, without losses, without pain. And deep down, when things don't go as expected, you're not disappointed with God. You're disappointed with your own idol. Yes, that idol you shaped with your illusions, your social media filled with other people's success, your constant comparisons. That bright future that God never promised, but you demanded. And here comes the revelation that many fear to hear. God destroys idols, even if they're in your heart, even if you love them, even if you prayed for them, even if you believe there's nothing wrong with it. Because if that which you love has become a barrier between you and total surrender to His guidance, then God will undo it. And He won't do it with your permission. He'll do it out of love, because He would rather see you cry over what you lose than watch you lose your entire soul over something you were never meant to have. When God closes doors that you wanted to break down, has a closed door ever hurt you so much that you felt it was unfair? Did you dare to think, why God? If this was something good, what if I told you that not every good door is a door from God? Here's a raw truth, but a necessary one. What you call an opportunity, God calls a trap. What you see as a blessing, He sees as a diversion. And yes, sometimes it hurts. It hurts when He says no without giving you explanations. It hurts when He pulls you out of a place where you thought you would thrive. But there's something few understand. God doesn't lead you to where everything looks perfect. He leads you to where your soul is safe. And sometimes the only way to protect you is by breaking everything you built. It's letting you cry over the ashes of your plan, so that you finally understand that your life isn't about what you can build, but about what He can redeem. That door that closed, that yes that never came, that person who left, that project that died. What if it was God saving you from yourself? God guides you, but doesn't explain. Here's the darkest part of the process. God is not obligated to explain anything to you. And for many, this is intolerable, because we want guarantees. We want to know why this and why that. But God is not a professor teaching celestial logic. He is the creator of the universe, guiding eternal souls toward eternal purposes. And many times, He will do this without giving you details, without revealing the end, without showing you the whole map. Do you know why? Because if you understood everything, you wouldn't need faith. Look at the Bible. Abraham walked without knowing where he was going. Joseph was sold without understanding the purpose. Mary accepted the plan without knowing the pain. Jesus went to the cross without resistance, because He knew the Father's will is always fulfilled, even when it looks like a disaster. You want signs. You want maps. You want explanations. But God says to you, just trust and walk. Because while you're asking why, God is already working on the for what. And now comes the most hidden part of all, the one that isn't easily preached. Following God's guidance without forcing anything is a form of death. Death to the ego, death to control, death to the plans you so carefully crafted. Because truly letting yourself be guided is not just waiting. It's surrender. It's allowing your soul to be dismantled, your inner structures to collapse, your securities to vanish, until only naked faith and radical obedience remain. And right there, only there, is where what no one told you happens. God starts to truly guide you, but He doesn't lead you on easy paths. He leads you on paths that cut, that confront, that purify. He takes you out of Egypt, but He also takes you to the desert. He shows you the promised land, but makes you circle it for years until your old versions die. Because He doesn't just want to bless you. He wants to transform you. And that transformation will never be forced, but it will never be comfortable either. So the next time you say to Him, Lord, guide me without forcing anything, understand that you are surrendering your soul to the refining fire, to the silence that tests, and to the love that, even though it hurts, will never let you go.